Hello children, welcome to class 11 English online class. Are you all happy? This is just a substitute class. Okay, so I am going to summarize the lesson, the portrait of a lady. I hope you all understood the lesson, the portrait of a lady. What does this lesson talk about? Who has written this lesson? I have a lot of questions. Can you answer? Okay, now see children, this lesson talks about the bond, the love that the author and the grandmother they have. They cherish their relationship, the love between the grandmother and the author. That is what is depicted in this lesson. And who has written this lesson? The writer of this lesson is Khushwant Singh. Yes, Khushwant Singh is an Indian writer. He has written this beautiful story, The Portrait of a Lady. What's the meaning of portrait? Portrait is a painting, it's a drawing, okay, about having the face, okay, which will be kept in a frame. The portrait of a lady. So the author here he talks about his grandmother throughout this lesson. He is highlighting how great grandmother he has. Right. Now see, in the beginning, in the starting of the story, the writer describes the grandmother. How is the grandmother? The grandmother is very old. The writer, he couldn't imagine that the grandmother was pretty much. But the author, he agreed that the grandmother was very beautiful. And what does he say about the beauty of the grandmother? See here. Yes, she was beautiful. She was like the winter landscape. She was very beautiful. Beautiful lady. But the author doesn't agree that she was pretty. And even he couldn't digest that the lady, that is the grandmother, was playing some games when she was young. All those things are like a story for him, like the old prophet story which the grandmother used to tell to the grandchildren. Yes. What he says she often told us of the games she used to play as a child that seemed quite absurd. He couldn't imagine grandmother playing games because on his thought, the author always thinking that the lady was very old. She was remaining old for many years. See, he has said she was an old woman. She had been old and wrinkled for the 20 years that I had known her. For the past 20 years, the old lady, the grandmother, she remained old for 20 years. There is no change at all. She had some wrinkles on the face and the same wrinkles she had for 20 years. She was wearing white colored saree. She was wearing for 20 years. Okay, she had that white hair, everything, puckered face, everything. Okay, she was remaining old for a long time. And even the writer talks about the grandfather. Grandfather was more than 100 years old. He was having a long beard. Okay, the beard came till the chest. It had covered the main part of his chest. Having long beard, and the grandfather could have only grandchildren, according to the writer, because he didn't think that grandfather would have married and he had a wife. All those things are unimaginable for the writer. He was thinking grandfather as a grandfather. And now, grandmother. The description of the grandmother is given in the beginning of the story. Right. Grandmother was very old. She was beautiful. She was always telling her prayers, rolling the rosary, and she was living a peaceful life. And the writer and grandmother, both of them, they were living in a village. Where had the parents gone? Yes, the parents had gone to a city for some job or whatever it is. Parents were not there. So the writer, he was living in grandmother's house and they were living in a village. And now the daily activity, the routine activity of their grandmother. What the grandmother used to do? Grandmother used to wake up the writer. See, father and mother is not at home. So grandmother, she has taken the sole responsibility to bring up the writer. See, that is the relationship the writer and the grandmother had. Grandmother used to wake him up and then she will recite the morning prayer. And when the writer was taking bath, the grandmother used to sing morning prayer. Why? so that the writer would listen to songs and he would by heart the songs. That is the idea of grandmother. See, very good grandmother, always trying to teach the child, right? So grandmother was singing some prayer songs when the writer was taking bath, but the writer had not memorized those songs. On the other hand, the writer loved to listen to songs of the grandmother. Okay, she had a very beautiful voice. He used to listen, but he had not by hearted the songs. Right, I listened because I loved her voice. That is what written. He listened because the writer loved the voice of the grandmother. Right, now see here. And then grandmother would make him ready to go to school. She would prepare stale chapati. She would spread some butter on it. With a grandmother and writer, both of them, they used to go to school. And while going, grandmother will also take more chapatis for the street dogs. Look at the kindness of the old lady. Okay, she had cooked food for the grandson, and remaining chapatis she used to feed the stray dogs. Who will take care of the stray dogs? They are in the roadside. Whatever they get, they eat. But this grandmother, so loving lady, kind lady, she used to take the chapatis with her for feeding the street dogs. Right. Both of them, they used to, this is the morning work. Okay, they get up, they sing songs, pray and everything, taking chapati and getting ready to school, slate and everything, pen, all the stationery item is mentioned there. With that preparation, they used to go to school. Where is the school? The school is attached near the temple. And the priest is the one, the temple priest, he is the one who used to teach alphabets to the children. So when the writer was learning alphabets with the priest, grandmother was sitting in the temple and she was praying or reading scriptures. She was reading scriptures by sitting in the temple. So after the school, when they were going home, a grandmother used to feed the dogs by throwing the chapatis, and all the street dogs, they were barking and eating the chapatis. That is what written, right? Now, like that, the writer had a very happy life. The writer was very happy. Okay, staying with the grandmother. He did not miss the parents because grandmother's love was so tasty. It was so good. Okay, he enjoys the love of grandmother. He was learning everything and he was so happy. Okay, days going on by this, days rolled by, and after some years, the parents came and took grandmother and the writer to city. Right? Grandmother and the writer, they were shifted to city. Both of them went to city. Now when they went to city, there is a slight gap in the relationship of grandmother and the writer. When they went to the city, now grandmother was not permitted to take the boy to school because it is a city life, totally different. He was studying in an English medium school. He used to go by school bus. So grandmother stopped coming to school with him. And the relationship, there is a small gap in the relationship. And even when he came back from school, grandmother used to ask him, what did you learn? And he used to say, Grandma, we learned the principles of Archimedes, we learned this, we learned that, science, this, that, like that he will be telling, which grandmother had not understood. Because for her, teaching is teaching God. Like so, based on religious, because they learned in a school which is attached to the temple. So there is no religion, no religious activities, no God was taught in the school. So grandmother was unhappy, and one day the writer said, Grandma, today we learnt music. And that day onwards, grandmother stopped asking him about anything, because music is meant for only for the people who are very bad, according to her. Okay, so she stopped questioning him about his studies. Okay, so now you see, slowly, gradually, the gap is becoming big. Okay, she was not liking him going to the English medium school and studying all those things. Right, days passed by. Now the young boy, the writer from village, he had some schooling, and now city he had some schooling. Now he finished his school. Now he had to go to university. Now when he is appointed, or when he gets a chance to study in university, he had got a separate room Now there's more gap. Okay, earlier they were staying at least sleeping. They used to sleep together. Other than that, no other activities. No, there is a big gap. But now, even the room is separated. The writer used to sleep in another room. So that sleeping, that staying together also is missed out now. So there's total gap now. So he was studying in a university and he was, but now grandmother, after coming to city, she used to feed the sparrows. She used to throw the small food crumbs to the sparrows, and the sparrows used to come, and then half an hour she would enjoy being with the sparrows. The sparrows would come and sit on their shoulder, on their head, on their lap, but she would not disturb them. She would enjoy feeding the sparrows. And she was always busy in her handloom. She was spinning. She was always spinning the cloth. Okay. Now he finished his college also, university. Now for higher studies, he had to go to abroad. The writer had to go to abroad. Now see, he had to study 5 years in a foreign country. Already grandmother was a very old lady. Certainly, when he returned, grandmother would be alive or not, we don't know. Okay, but grandma was very confident. She came to the railway station to send him off, and she even kissed him on his forehead and she waved bye-bye. What happened? That was the confidence, and the writer was so unhappy. He thought that was the last physical touch. Grandmother kissing him. That was the last physical touch. When I come after 5 years, whether grandma would be there or not, I don't know. So, writer went away for his higher studies to abroad. 5 years passed away. After 5 years, when he returned to India, he was so happy to see grandma in the platform, waiting to receive him. Grandma was standing there. And she received the writer. The writer was so happy to see grandma after 5 years. So that day, grandma was very happy. She stopped her usual activity. She used to spend a lot of time in prayer, okay, with her rosary. But that day, she didn't pray, but she sat with her sparrows. That activity she did. And then, in the evening, she called all the ladies, all the neighborhood women. Everyone was called. And she took some drum and she was beating the drum and singing songs in praise of soldiers. She was singing happy songs. Continuously she was singing for hours. So she was very happy. Happily she was singing songs. Then the writer and all the other family members, they had to come and stop her. Grandma, enough! Stop singing. Like that they stopped. So that day, grandma went home without prayer. The next day, she became ill. She became very sick. The doctor said, okay, she will be all right shortly. But grandma said, no, I would die. My time had come. I would be no more. I'm going to die. So I have not prayed yesterday. So leave me alone. Let me pray. Like that she said. And she lay down on her bed. And she started to pray, counting her rosary. When the family members, when they thought what was happening, then they realized, died. Her lips stopped moving. The rosary fell from her hand. She lied down without life. She died. The writer was looking at her. Such a good relationship, such a great, loving grandma. She is no more. Okay, the funeral activity, okay, now the last ceremony is set up. They covered her with their cloth and her body was kept on the hall. And during that time, all the sparrows came. Thousands of sparrows. Did the sparrows know that the grandmother is no more? We don't know. Whether the sparrows have that much sense to realize that grandmother's death, we don't know. But that day, the whole house, the place where grandma was kept, the body was kept everywhere. Sparrows, more number of sparrows. More than usual numbers, lot of sparrows, more sparrows came. They were all sitting. And the writer and the family members, they threw some food crumbs to the sparrows. And the grandmother's body was taken. What happened? The next day, the servant had to clean, had to broom. Okay, it was written there. next morning, the sweeper swept the breadcrumbs into the dustbin. That means what? Even the sparrows had not come to eat the food crumbs that day. That day, they all came to salute grandma, to say goodbye to grandma, because grandma is no more. All the birds, they didn't come to eat. They came to take part in the funeral ceremony of the grandma. All the sparrows. Such kind of love that grandma had earned from the birds. The birds came and they sat. When the grandmother died, they all sat with the people and they all flew away. They didn't eat any crumbs that day. They were hungry. They didn't eat because they loved grandma. They had a very good relationship with grandma. Now this writer, Kushwant Singh, he was cherishing his happy moment with grandma. Oh, how happy I was with grandma. Such a great personality, good character, right? In the village days, when he was a schoolboy, he loved being with grandma. Then when he came to city, there is a gap. Okay, and when he went to university, little more gap. And when he went to abroad, a very big gap. But when he came, grandma was so happy. Why did she sing very happy on that day? On seeing the grandson. Such a great lady. But she is no more now. God has taken the life of grandma. Grandma is no more. Grandma is no more. So look at the expression or feelings of the writer. He missed grandma. That is why he had made a portrait of grandma, the picture, the drawing of grandma, and it is hung on the wall. And the writer has written very beautifully about the grandmother's love, grandmother's relationship. Okay, he missed grandmother. That is the reason the portrait of lady is in your hand now. So this is the story. It is a very simple story. The portrait of a lady written by Kushwant Singh. It talks, it speaks a great volume of love of grandmother on the grandson. Hope you have all understood the summary of the story. Already you have been taught. Just read the story line by line and enjoy the moment. And at the end of the story, you will have a great sense of feelings that you will miss certain things. You will love your grandma. Right? In your life also, my dear children, if you have any grandmother, grandfather, treat them well, love them, care them, and take care of them. That is the moral of the story. Life skills, you have to take care of the elders, not only your grandparents, even anybody you see on the road or anywhere, please help the elderly people. Certainly, God will bless you. Thank you, children. Take care. God bless you all. Bye-bye.